Okay, so this is going to be weird to start off an episode like this, but the episode you're about to hear was recorded for Thursday of last week. So basically, I'm going to be talking about what are you doing for the weekend? What am I doing for the weekend? All that stuff that I normally talk about at the end of the week. The reason why all the episodes kind of got pushed. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you guys. So last week I did that episode talking about watching The Mummy over at Sabine's house. And more weird stuff happened. It actually shut down my production schedule. And I'm not going to go into detail of it here at the intro of this episode. We're going to talk about it on tomorrow's episode. Because it's weird. And I honestly don't know how to handle it going forward. I'm going to go into more detail tomorrow. But yeah, the only reason I'm doing this intro now is because I'm going to constantly reference the weekend for about the first half of the episode. And then I recorded the second half after the events that just happened last night. More stuff. I don't even know what to do with it. Nothing, life-changing, just spooky. I'm just trying to do a paranormal podcast. Why do paranormal events have to keep happening? So anyways, I'm doing this intro because parts of this episode won't make sense. You'll be like, what? It's Tuesday. Why is he talking about Disclosure Day's coming out? I'm sure he's seen it by now. But so let's go ahead and get started with this episode, and then tomorrow's episode I'll go into full detail as to what happened with everything. Just more weirdness, more weird stuff. But let's get started with this episode right now. A bizarre haunting that will leave you breathless. What happens when a Mandela effect can actually be proven beyond a reasonable doubt that the current version of reality is wrong? And then we take a look at the bizarre crossroads between true crime and the paranormal. What happens when a seemingly ordinary police body cam picks up what could possibly be the ghosts of the victims? Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. I hope you guys are having a great day too, and I hope you guys have some awesome plans for the weekend. I, of course, am looking forward to Disclosure Day, Steven Spielberg's new movie about aliens visiting Earth, or I don't actually know what it's about. The trailer's kind of mysterious, but really looking forward to it. It should be pretty awesome. And also, other than that, I do want to say, guys, June 13th, I think, is the day. The 8th anniversary of Dead Rabbit Radio. 8 years with you guys. This has been totally awesome, and we are going to celebrate that by having a Dead Rabbit Radio live stream. Not this weekend. You're like, oh, yay, we know. We're going to have to wait a bit. We're going to do it on June 27th. That's when my schedule is the clearest. June 27th, that's a Saturday. We'll do it at 11 a.m., We're going to have a Dead Rabbit Radio live stream special, so keep an eye out for that. We'll be doing it on YouTube as normal. It usually lasts about 2 hours. It's a question and answer session, just hanging out with you guys, talking about the show. 8 years. What an awesome journey, and it is not a journey that is over yet. We got so many great years, so many great stories ahead of us, but I hope to see you guys there. June 27th, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube. More details will follow. But let's talk about details right now. Someone who loves details, someone who walks around with a magnifying glass, checking everything out, running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Everyone get on your feet and give it up for Heavenbound 32566. Woo! Yeah, this big cloud, this big heavenly cloud is floating on into Dead Rabbit Radio Command, smothering all its poison gas, actually. Heavenbound is a member of our YouTube membership thing. I don't know the official word. I think this is YouTube membership. Heavenbound supports the show through the YouTube membership program. Really appreciate that. And Heavenbound, that is why you are going to be our captain, our pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially through the YouTube membership program or through the Patreon or the merch store or anything like that, it's totally fine. It really is. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone, you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Okay, Heavenbound, let's go ahead and get started. Heavenbound, let's go ahead and toss you the keys to the Bunny Bicycle, everyone climb on board, is heaven bound, pedals us out of Dead Rabbit Radio Command, all the way out to Anywhere, USA. Inca, Inca, Inca. Inca, Inca, Inca. Inca, Inca, Inca. Pedaling all the way out there. We're headed back to the year 2002, and we will meet a young girl. We don't have a real name. We're going to call her Rita. Oh, you know what? Actually, before we get to Anywhere USA, recently I got a YouTube comment. We were doing the episode about how aliens.gov, that website, went live. And it turns out it was just a Donald Trump joke. It was about illegal aliens, not aliens from outer space. It was like a joke months in the making. What a waste of everybody's time. I did an episode on it. It was talking about all of this stuff. And if you read the website, you make it think like they're talking about aliens coming from outer space. And it turns out they're talking about illegal aliens coming from other countries and hiding among the citizens of the United States. We did that segment. And I got a YouTube comment from someone, and I'm not putting you on blast, right? This is what I love about this. I love discourse. I love dialogue. I love differing opinions. I got a YouTube comment from Jungian Origami 9975 about this issue. And in the episode I said, so what is the purpose of all of this? Is this just a trick? Why did they do this? Why did they do this? And Jungian Origami said, a quote, "Jason, you have no idea how much I wanted to yell at the top of my lungs at my phone. He's covering up the Epstein Files and the genocide." And this is something I responded to Jungian about this, and I said, I've never addressed this on the show, but it's something that I've believed for quite a while now. When you see a lot of people talk about the Epstein Files online, they'll talk about the Iran war is a distraction from the Epstein Files. Release the Epstein Files. UFO disclosure is a distraction from the Epstein Files. Release the Epstein Files, because there's another 3 million documents. Anything that the government has done in the past 10 months, a lot of people will say, yeah, fine, cool, just show me the Epstein Files. I'm not saying that about the war in Iran, but you know what I mean? Like, people go, oh, aliens, fun, yeah, release the Epstein Files. And a lot of the stuff that's gone on in the past couple months has been pretty high stakes, the war in Iran and all that. Release the Epstein Files, release the Epstein Files. All of these things are a distraction. I think, I've never said this before on the show, but I've said it in my private life, right? Because I talk about this stuff and friends are like, oh man, not again. They see me walking down the block. Hey guys, what's up? I gotta tell you something. I think the Epstein Files themselves are a distraction. Now, I'm not minimizing what happened with those victims. I'm not minimizing the extent of the corruption that was involved for this to happen. But the Epstein Files, I think, are set up in such a way that they are distracting us from something else. And this is why. I'm not going to go into super detail, right? It's not a super fun thing to talk about. Heaven Bound's trying to float away. Come back here. I am 49 years old. I turned 50 in 4 months. I've been a conspiracy theorist, aficionado, if not a full-blown conspiracy theorist, since I was 12 years old. I've lived through a lot of these document dumps. I lived through a lot of these cover-ups. I've seen them take place, whether it was, I was too young for this, but obviously when I was a kid, I was reading about the Warren Commission, the investigation into JFK, all the way now to the Epstein Files. And the one thing the Epstein Files does differently than any other government disclosure in our lifetime, and they didn't have to do this, because if it was me, if I was president, my name popped up in these files, first off, I would never release them. I just wouldn't. People could stammer and stomp their feet as much as they wanted to, and I may have said when I was on the political campaign trail that I was going to release the Epstein Files. I would have never released them, ever. And people would be saying, release the Epstein Files, and you just don't release them. That would have been what we do. And that's what the government has done with all of these other ones. We still don't have the full JFK files. I would have never released them. But if I had to release them for whatever reason, I would have released them in such a way that it would have been so difficult to get a hold of them. I said, sure, I'll release them. They're going to be in paper form at this library here in DC that you can't take with you. They could have released it that way. The way that they released them, they made it so user-friendly. They put it on a website, which is easily available to everybody, and they have a search bar that you can type in Michael Jackson. You can type in Donald Trump. You can type in Matt Groening or Stephen Hawking. You can type in pizza or hot dog and find all the references to that in a very easy to navigate way. They didn't have to do it this way. There was no law passed saying these documents had to be released. And there was nothing saying that they needed to put it available to the public via the web. And they needed to give it a world-class search function. There is no reason why any of this stuff should be available. Again, I'm not saying that the files themselves are not important, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't see them. But there's 100 different ways these files could have been released that they would have not been easily searched. And let me back up to Youngie and Origami. Thank you for your comment. They didn't have to do it this way, and made people pour through 3 million documents and find what they were looking for. The fact that there's a search bar in it makes me very suspicious. I think the Epstein Files was set up to be a distraction, and I think it was set up to because the news cycle moves on. Most people have already they know about the Epstein Files. They have a kind of an understanding what's in them. They move on to the next news cycle. The people who are clamoring for more Epstein Files, the people who are searching these through the search bar, the people who are spending time going through these documents, I do think all of that is noble. I do think all of that stuff needs to be done, but I do think it's a distraction from something else. I think the government made it so easy to search because at the end of the day, they know there's nothing in there. They know there's nothing in there that can actually cause trouble other than people going, I mean, listen, there's some horrible stuff in there, yes. But they would not release a document if they thought it would cause the downfall of a corporation or the destruction of an administration. The other time that this has happened was not the government. I believe it was WikiLeaks when they released all of this stuff, including the Podesta emails, including the big financial corruption that corporations were, and I think a bunch of private individuals and government members as well. There was a lot of economic thievery and all of that. They were using shell companies. It wasn't a very sexy conspiracy theory. It didn't stick around. It wasn't a conspiracy theory. I mean, it was proven with these documents that were leaked. What was it called? Like Sector 7 or something like that, this document them. WikiLeaks has a great search bar. You can find all sorts of stuff in WikiLeaks. They're a non-governmental organization, and they do produce stuff that is illegal. Governments will try to arrest the people. Remember that whole thing with Julian Assange having a hideout in the embassy? We did an episode on that because the government's been after him for a long time. They have a search bar because they want to make it easy for you to search, and they produce documents the government doesn't want you to see. So they have a world-class search bar. We didn't need one. The government didn't need to provide one with the Epstein Files. The fact that they did makes me think they're covering something else up. Maybe not something worse than the Epstein Files, but something that's currently going on. Not every conspiracy theory has to involve saint worshipping or child molesters and things like that. I understand that those are the ones that are more intriguing to us, but the ones that affect us the most, I mean, assuming you're not a victim of the actual saint worshipping or child molesting in that particular story, the ones that affect us most day to day are the financial crimes that are happening right now. And again, I want to reiterate one last time, I'm not saying don't investigate the Epstein Files, but I'm saying balance them out. I'm doing the little 6-7 hand motion right now if you guys can't see it, which you obviously can't, but maybe you can hear the air moving. You got to balance it out. I do think the Epstein Files is a distraction from something else. I don't know what, but they didn't have to release it this way. They did, and they did it for a reason, and they didn't do it for us. But I really love, I don't respond to YouTube comments as much as I used to. I'm trying to get back into that habit, but I do read them, and I really did appreciate that comment there. And I just thought it was interesting. I wanted to talk to you guys about it. Let's go ahead, and you're like, okay, you didn't talk about Vore this episode. That's kind of nice, but maybe you kind of hoping not for any more Epstein stuff either. It does. The imagery, right, is obviously horrible. I got one more Epstein story coming up. I'm still getting ready. It's shocking what was happening. Like, of course it was shocking. What more can you add? Well, this one is a mystical-based story. And it was actually reported in the mainstream media. I'm surprised it didn't get more play. I think it's so inflammatory that even the mainstream media went, uh-oh, we shouldn't have published that one. But very interesting what was going on at Epstein Island as far as the mysticism side of it. And we'll talk about that in a later episode. But for right now, let's continue off to this ordinary neighborhood and take a look at an extraordinary ghost story. Quite bizarre, quite bizarre. Heaven Bound is taking us out to this neighborhood, this very normal neighborhood that has what might be, I don't want to say it's the most unusual ghost story I've ever come across or anything like that. I'm not going to hype it up too much, but this one really puzzles me. Like, I understand in a way what's going on, but at the same time, it's such a dynamic ghost sighting. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. We're going to take a look at the story of this young woman. We don't have her real name. We'll call her Rita. The story takes place back in 2002 when Rita was 11 years old, and she said she was a homeschool girl. And, you know, homeschool is different than when I was a kid. When I was a kid, the homeschoolers were like the weirdos. When I was a kid, the only people you knew who were homeschooled were kids from very, very religious families. That was about it. Nowadays, and I'm glad for this change. I think a lot of kids could benefit from homeschooling for sure. It's more socially acceptable. More people do it across the political spectrum, across the religious spectrum, the cultural spectrum. One thing because I know people who were homeschooled or homeschooled their children. As I got older, I would meet parents who were homeschooling their kids. One thing I didn't really know about it was that they were allowed to go on field trips and school dances. They could join band and do theater, which is kind of cool because I think all of that stuff makes you a well-rounded citizen. Well, Rita is much like this. Even though she's homeschooled, she gets to go on school field trips. And on this particular day, she, normally is at home learning. But on this particular day, she goes with her class to a field trip. And after the field trip, she is dropped off at her mom's work, which Rita says she loved being at her mom's work. We don't know exactly where her mom worked. Rita's online username is DisneyLover2718. It's possible her mother worked for Disney, which would make sense from the name, but it's also possible she was an accountant or something boring like that. But whatever the case, you're all getting excited. You're like, ooh, a spooky Disney story? Ooh, I can't wait. No, sorry, may not be that, but could be. But whether or not it is, it has nothing to do with the ghost sighting. It's not the ghost of Donald Duck. She loved being at her mom's work, so she was actually happy after the field trip she got dropped off at her mom's work. But this day was different. And even Rita couldn't understand why she was demanding to go back home. She really didn't want to be there that day. And in the moment, she goes, why don't I want to be here? Why is this irritating me so much? I normally love hanging out with my mom. I usually love mom's work. Pirates of the Caribbean, it's an amazing ride, even for the 50th time in one day. But I want to go home. I want to go home, Mom. Take me home, take me home. She's doing this, and the mom's finally like, fine, I'll take you home. It's an inconvenience to me, Rita. But your kids, the whole time, you can't really focus. So mom goes, fine, Rita, I'll take you home. And they do. They drive home. Now, when they get home, mom goes inside the house, and Rita is following right behind her when she remembers that she forgot something in the car. So she turns and she walks down the driveway back to the car. And that is when she sees a car pull up. A car that she recognizes. It's the car of her brother's friend. And we'll call the brother's friend Fred. And her brother we'll call John, which I think might actually be his real name. I didn't specify in the notes that was a fake name, but it might be his real name. She sees Fred's car pulls up. She knows Fred. She knows what his car looks like. Fred's car pulls up. The passenger door opens. John jumps out of Fred's car, runs past Rita, and runs directly into the backyard of their house. Fred's car is quickly followed. Let me think of another way to phrase that. There was another car right behind Fred's car that also stopped quickly after Fred parked. This was a car she didn't recognize. And the driver of this car she didn't recognize either. This man, wearing a suit, gets out of the car and walks past Fred's car, walks to Rita and says, "Is your mom home? I need to talk to her." Rita's like, yeah, I'll go get her. So Rita walks into the house and she walks up to Mom and she goes, "Hey, Mom, I just saw John run into the backyard and there's a man in the suit asking to talk to you in the front yard." Now, the mom's a little exasperated by this. She's already been having to go home early to take Rita home. And even Rita's a little over it at this point because they both know that John has trouble with the law. John has had several problems with law enforcement. Rita, at 11 years old, she can kind of put two and two together. Fred and John were driving through the neighborhood. This cop was following them for some reason, known only to John and Fred. John ran into the backyard. The cop's asking to talk to you. John must be in trouble again. The cops are looking for him. So, kind of passing by each other, the man in the suit goes in the house to talk to Mom, while Rita steps out of the house to go talk to Fred. But as Rita is walking down the driveway towards Fred's car, she hears a blood-curdling scream come from the house. A blood-curdling scream come from her own mother. Rita said, quote, "It's something that even the best Hollywood actors cannot recreate," unquote. That's when Grandma comes out of the house. There's a lot of people in this home. Grandma comes out of the house to talk to Rita. I think a little bit of time. I don't think it was all instantaneous. I think a couple moments had passed, but Rita's out there. She still hasn't had a chance to talk to Fred about what's going on. Why John ran to the backyard, any of that. Grandma comes out of the house and says, Rita, I need to, come here. I need to talk to you. John has been murdered. John was killed, and that was a police officer telling us what had happened. We talk a lot on this show about, we did a big episode on it not too long ago, about seeing the dead before you know they're dead. When I use the term common when I'm talking about paranormal activity, it's specifically with paranormal activity, which is uncommon to begin with. But this is a phenomenon that does pop up from time to time. You see your grandpa walk into the room and say, Johnny boy, everything's gonna be okay." You're like, "Grandpa, what are you doing here?" And then you find out that Grandpa died in the middle of the night in Chicago. Died of emphysema or something like that. That happens a lot in the world of the paranormal, which is already rare. It's a common occurrence in a rare set of occurrences. This might be one of the most dynamic ones that I've heard. From what we can tell, Fred didn't see John in the car. It's not like the car door flew open as if a ghost jumped out, but Rita, that's what Rita saw. Rita saw John get out of the car and run into the backyard, not phase through the door. This is really interesting to think about it, right? Because Fred didn't go, "Wow, what's going on? Why did my car door just open? Why do I hear footsteps running away from my car?" Fred observed nothing. The man in the suit, who was pulling up at the same time, observed nothing. But Rita, the sister, saw John get out of the car and run into the backyard. And obviously he wasn't there. He had been murdered a few hours before his sighting at this house. But this is the way these apparitions play out. Before Rita knows that he's dead, she sees him and he's running. And the visual is very horrifying, because we can think of it as him running for his life before he gets murdered. He's trapped in this loop. He's trying to get away before he's killed. It could be a spirit running home to hide like a child would. A safe place where he knows he'll be protected, but he'll never ever actually reach that place again. He's dead. Running to the arms of his mother. But he didn't go. That one's just sad, but his mom wasn't in the backyard. And that's just kind of a sad image, right? They say a lot of times that when a young man or even an old man is dying, they cry out for their mother. That's very common when you watch videos of people dying in battle or people being murdered. Men, particularly, will cry out for their mother as they're being slaughtered. It's quite tragic. The healer of wounds, the kisser of boo-boos, the comforter, the loving mother. It's very interesting, very dynamic haunting. This happened 24 years ago. When she posted this, Rita was 35. And there's no mention of the house being haunted after that. There's no mention of his spirit being sighted in the backyard or in the house, even a shadow figure standing at the end of a hallway. Nothing. So it could be a residual haunting. It could have been a last gasp of a spirit trying to seek safety. But when you look at all the elements of it, and again, what's interesting too is this story would have not happened. Obviously, it wouldn't have happened if John wasn't murdered, but there's a key component of this story that had this not happened, the spirit would have not been seen, most likely. And that's if Rita didn't go home early. Rita was the only one who observed it, to see him running into the backyard. He was dead before they left the workplace. He most likely was dead at some point during the field trip, if not earlier than that. But had she stayed at work, I actually reached out to Disney Lover because there are some things that I just wanted to make sure I had a good timeline of it. And she said that the officer asked Fred, do you know where his mother lives? And they drove there in their separate cars, and that's why he was behind Fred. He didn't have that address on file. John had his own residence at that point. Actually, now that I think about it, yeah, he wasn't even living there, but still running home to your mother. Had the mom and Rita not had gone home, the police officer would have went there, Grandma would have been there, the officer might have told her, and then at Mom's workplace, she would have gotten a call in the middle of the day, as Rita is just sitting there, hanging out at Tom Sawyer's Lagoon, or the Tiki Cruise or something. But Mom was home, that place of familiar comfort, the place where John's spirit would run to one last time, and more importantly, the place where his sister could observe it. Had those elements not been there, it's interesting, I think his spirit still would have ran, but no one would have observed it. There would have been no one there to see it. And that's kind of a great segue. I didn't think about this. That's kind of a great segue to our next story. I know this episode's a little heavy. We went from Epstein Files to this. Our next story is no more lighthearted, but heaven bound, let's go ahead and toss you the keys of the world-famous Carpenter Copter. We are saying goodbye to Rita and her family. Such a tragic story, but a very, very visually dynamic ghost story. We're leaving behind this family. Why don't you fly us all the way out to Ohio? We're headed out to Ohio. Specifically, we're headed out to Strongsville, Ohio. It's July 31st, 2022. It's 5:30 in the morning. And that is when you have a carload of 3 teenagers. You have Mackenzie Shrilla. You're like, some of you guys know exactly how this story starts, but I don't think everyone knows how this story ends. There's been some bizarre new evidence involving this. It's not a true crime story. Partly it is, but a very bizarre paranormal story possibly as well. Mackenzie Shrilla, 17-year-old girl, she's driving her car with two passengers in it. Her boyfriend, Dominic Russo, a 20-year-old man, and their mutual friend, Davion Flanagan. He's 19. They had been up all night, partying, hanging out. Partying is probably not the right word, but they're up all night, hanging out, smoking weed, having a good time. But what happens is the local authorities, law enforcement, medical, all of that, they start getting calls saying there's been a horrible car crash. And so when first responders get out there, they find a car that has impacted a brick wall going 100 miles an hour. One of the officers on the scene said it was the worst car crash he'd ever seen in his life. And he was surprised that there was any survivors. But there was one. Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan both passed away. They were declared dead at the scene, which generally means massive trauma. Even if you're unconscious, sometimes even if you don't have a heartbeat, they'll still try to render aid and get you in an ambulance and get you somewhere. Dead at the scene, it's a lot. There's basically the EMTs get there and they go, this guy's just in pieces. No. I mean, I don't mean to be, I'm not saying that's exactly how these guys were. I don't want to be too grim. But, yeah, there's usually, because just for liability reasons, you want to put him in the ambulance and take him to the hospital, even if they go, well, he doesn't have a pulse, but for liability reasons, you still want to try to do something. Dead at the scene usually means visibly, broken neck, decapitation, massive trauma, blood loss, stuff like that. Jason, you're really going out of your way to make this episode depressing. Well, Mackenzie survived. She was seriously injured, but she survived. And what happened was, it was chalked up as a horrible accident, and the police, that's how they took it. Smoking weed, not really being smart, being a bad driver. But she was so badly injured that, they took her to the hospital, she starts getting treated, and the cops are kind of like a back burner case, really. It's a little odd, but, teens and car accidents, unfortunately, are very common. What happened was the families of Dominic and Davion began to talk to the police and say, you need to investigate this further. This is super suspicious what happened. And the police are like, well, because, listen, even a small town, you got a lot of stuff to do. And when you can say this was a car accident, whether or not you want to charge her with smoking weed and driving and do a manslaughter or whatever, they'll look at all this stuff. Can we get a jury to convict? She's this young girl. She's 10, all this stuff. The police are kind of like, well, we don't know. And the family goes, no, listen, this was not as clear-cut as you think it is. There was the obvious thing that was kind of pissing off the locals because Mackenzie was doing social media where she was like at a concert in her wheelchair, kind of like having a good time. And that kind of made people, it put a bad taste in people's mouth. They go, dude, your boyfriend and your friend are both dead and you're out partying. But can you blame a girl for that? Then there was the controversy that for Halloween, her and her friends dressed up like corpses. Like they put on makeup to make themselves look dead. And they said it was like they were supposed to look like some movie stars, supposed to look like some music band or something like that. But again, people in town go, that's in bad taste, the very least. At the most, it's open mockery. Now, these things aren't the reasons why cops reopened the investigation. They did. It was stuff people came forward and said, Mackenzie, and this was something they had really years of people telling them this stuff, right? Like after the accident, they go, this all started back when she was 15. This all started back, da-da-da-da-da. They met when she was 13 and he was 16. That's when they started dating. And even from those early days, family members and friends of Dominic said, Mackenzie was an abusive girlfriend. She would hit him. We all saw it. We all saw him verbally abuse him, but she would also hit him. They'd break up, they'd get back together, they'd break up, they'd get back together. We all unfortunately know the cycle of abusive relationships, and they were telling the police, this is more of that. The family and friends were saying, you guys got to investigate this. She's a psychopath. Like, she would openly attack him. In fact, shortly before the accident, because Dominic, listen, man, anyone in an abusive relationship, be a man or woman, they do feel trapped. There's so much stuff that goes into it. It's not as easy as just leaving. There's so much manipulation going on. It's about as easy as leaving a cult. But, Dominic, before this car crash, he was videotaping, because she was acting like a lunatic. He videotaped her saying, I'm going to break into your house, Dominic. I'm going to come to your house. I'm going to key your car. I'm going to break in. And of course, you want to videotape all that in case that happens. You have proof. She also had a really bad habit of driving erratically. So the police do open an investigation very quietly. Mackenzie does not know that she is being looked at seriously for this, not for a manslaughter charge, which may or may not have come without the family complaining. They were now investigating her for possible premeditated murder. They said they could look at the GPS data coming from her phone. I think it was from her phone. It might have been from her car. She had visited the area 3 days ahead of time where this car accident was going to take place. They took that as her trying to scope out the area to see when there would be a lot of traffic. When could you possibly go 100 miles an hour down this stretch of road and crash into this wall? And the reason why they think it's premeditated is, now when they first observed this, they thought it was a mechanical error. They had the car checked out by a mechanic, what was left of it, and he goes, no, this car was perfectly functional before the accident, but at first the cops didn't know. She was going 100 miles an hour, and there was no brakes applied. There's no skid marks at all. She did not once attempt to stop or slow down the vehicle. Mechanical error? Who would think that a 17-year-old girl, before they knew all this abusive history, would be that psychotic? Anyone who's met a 17-year-old girl could have taken a guess. But you know what I mean? Truly insane to do this, especially with her in the car. So they do end up arresting her. At this point, she's already been convicted. This was a big news story, true crime story, not when it came out. When the accident first happened, it didn't really make national news. When the police arrested her for murder, that's when it became national news. Before, it was kind of a local news story, a tragedy. Teens die in horrible accident. One survivor. Then she's arrested, and the police theory that it was a murder, a double murder suicide. Her goal was to die in that car accident because she believed, rather true or not, she believed that Dominic was about to break up with her again, and she wasn't going to allow that to happen. A true psychopath, narcissist, abusive piece of garbage, Mackenzie. And I don't have to say allegedly, because she's already been found guilty. Why am I talking about this? Why am I talking about this true crime story that's already been resolved? There's no mystery. There's no other possible suspects. Why am I talking about this on the podcast so many years after it happened? Well, what's interesting is what has become more known now. There recently was a Netflix documentary called The Crash, which I have not seen. However, more information's coming out about this. Court TV recently released some Bodycam video footage of Mackenzie getting arrested, which was long after the accident. Remember, she was able to go out and celebrate Halloween and go to these concerts and all that stuff. The accident happened back in July of 2022. She still went on with her life for a couple months. She currently has 2 concurrent life sentences, but when she is arrested, we have this body cam footage of her being arrested and led into the police car. Let me play a little bit of that audio for you. So what you're about to hear is the sound. Who was in the shot is one officer who the body cam is attached to, and then Mackenzie being put into the back of a police car.
Watch your head going in. Don't. I'm not gonna hurt you. You okay?
So you may have heard that and go, okay, I didn't really hear much, it sounded like one police officer and a young girl being put in the back of a police car. Well, I'm going to play. This is always the trick with EVPs, right? This is what people are claiming, that this particular piece of footage has a EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, a ghostly voice saying, she killed us. Let me play this for you again.
Don't. I'm not gonna hurt you. You okay?
And there at the end, I looped it a couple times, which is common with playing EVPs. The EVP game, obviously, when you hear what it is supposed... Some of you guys may have picked it up right away, but the first time I played it. But when you listen to an EVP, a lot of times people can't hear it. I'm included as one of those people. I don't always hear the EVP the first time. But if someone tells you what it says, then it is clear as day, and you can't not hear it. She killed us. Now, what's really interesting about this is it doesn't say she killed me. It clearly says she killed us. And there were 2 people who died in this car accident. And again, this is when she is initially being arrested. We all know stories of people who never get arrested, commit some sort of horrible crime, but never get caught. And then we hear stories of people who get caught and get arrested and go to trial, and there's never any penalty for them. O.J. Simpson, for example, right? Perfect example. She killed us. It's almost like the spirit of one of those boys is saying that, and it's being picked up on this body cam. This isn't the first time we've covered something like this. A long time ago, we talked about the Chris Watts case. I'll put that episode in the show notes. There is so much weird EVP stuff involving that story, and just like weird, I don't want to say psychic, and I don't want to go through all the details of it again. I'll put the episode in the show notes, but they did that huge documentary. I think it's one of the best true crime documentaries I've ever seen, and I watch a ton of the stuff. I'll put that in the show notes as well, but it's basically, the movie is made of nothing but Facebook videos and body cam videos and self-shot stuff, security cameras. There's no narrator. It just tells the story of Chris Watts and how he murdered his family. We have everything from premonition, like weird visuals popping up on television, as he threw his kids, he murdered his kids and put them in an oil well, and while the cops are interviewing him in his house, an ad for American Horror Story comes on the television, which shows a fetus turning into a human skull being covered in oil. And also his wife was pregnant. He murdered his pregnant wife as well, so that would be the fetus imagery. Bizarre, right? What are the chances of that happening? Then you have EVPs in the Chris Watts case, and what's super interesting is the officers on the scene heard it. This wasn't just stuff that was kind of playing through possible electronic interference. I'll put the episode in the show notes. I recommend listening to it if you guys are interested, or even checking out the documentary because it's awesome. But they hear, the officers go, I thought I heard a little girl in the back of the closet, like a doll starts to activate, like a I'm a Tina doll type of thing. And officers are reacting to weird stuff going on in that house. And what I want to get at here, we'll wrap it up like this, is that I've talked from the early days of this show, I've said there is always a Venn diagram between paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime. That's why I chose the 3 subjects for the show. I mean, first off, there's subjects that I'm totally passionate about. And I love talking about them, and I can talk about them for hours on end, which I do, obviously, but a lot of times they overlap. And that's what I think this McKinsey case represents. The Chris Watts case represents. I was watching a Bizarre Bub video, who I love. We usually start off our Dead Rabbit Radio movie nights with some Bizarre Bub. What he does is he takes a bunch of user-submitted or videos he finds online of ghostly recordings, weird happenings in houses, and it's all like user-shot cell phone video, surveillance video, things like that. Every so often, he'll cover a law enforcement one. He did I'll see if I can find this, because I watched so many of them. I'll see if I can find this particular segment, but he did one where a fire department was called to these people's house for some real event, but there was like a camera in the living room. So many people have these cameras all over their house. I don't understand that. I would never do that, but there's a camera in this. A bunch of home invaders are like, what? Oh, he's no cameras in his house? Putting on their ski masks. The firefighters are, they're not like all in their gear. They're just regular, wearing their like t-shirt and their pants. They're not all geared up. They're there for some technical reason, some fire-related reason, but the building's not burning. There's been sightings of a ghost or weird activity in the living room, and before this happens, and we're watching this scene where a firefighter keeps turning and looking towards this couch that we have already seen weird stuff happen at. And so much so that he keeps shining his flashlight over there. And one of his coworkers goes, hey, dude, what are you doing? And he goes, I swear I just saw someone sitting over there. And the other guy kind of looks, I don't see anything. But the firefighter, for the rest of the conversation, keeps kind of peering into that dark living room because he swears he saw someone in the living room. And again, this is paranormal activity. That They had shown videos before that also showing that couch or that area of the home to be active, but now we have a third party in the house also noticing something. We do come across these videos from time to time, and what's interesting is I bet you there are tons of these out there. I would argue, pound for pound, there are probably more EVPs in police body cam footage than we would ever imagine. But we're not analyzing them for that. I mean, there's hours and hours and hours of footage generated every single day. And this footage is generated during peak human misery moments. Mothers finding out their children are dead. An officer carrying a wounded child away from an abusive family. Police officer walking up to a car, dead teenager inside of it. I mean, we just did that episode, what was that, 2 weeks ago, about the ghost that screamed. The photograph taken by a police officer that may or may not have been the spirit of a man leaving a car accident. I think there is a ton of this stuff, hours and hours and hours a day. That's minimizing it. Hours and hours and hours a day in just one police department in the United States. We don't ever have the ability to view all this stuff. The only reason why this video came to the forefront is because the Netflix documentary, so people are looking for more information about McKinsey. Someone posted this video on Reddit and said, check 2 minutes and 40 seconds into it. The video, you'll hear this EVP. What's crazy is that the subreddit took it down. They didn't think it was paranormal enough. But that, to me, 100% sounds like she killed us. That is a specific message for this crime. If only one person was killed and it said she killed us, wouldn't make sense. She killed us. So listen, man, I mean, like, I don't know how to resolve this either. I mean, do you want to sit and watch? I mean, I'm not saying you want to sit and watch police body cam footage all day long. I do. It's what I probably watch the second most on YouTube. The most is people playing Minecraft. But, I'm not listening for that. I'm not listening for weird voices or sounds in the middle of arrests. It just never really ever even occurred to me, even though we've covered stories like this before. It happens. And I bet you there's just tons of this stuff out there. There's huge databases of this police body cam footage. A lot of it's open to the public, but there's really not any way to scour it. And I would be really, really, really reluctant to say, let's use AI to go through all this body cam footage. Fascinating. You wonder how many other ghostly voices are screaming out for justice, or more accurately, whispering out for justice in these police body cam videos that are taken all over America every single day. And how many of those voices go unheard. Not just by paranormal experts, but by the justice system as well. How often does a spirit scream out, she killed us, but a jury still finds her not guilty? You're like, wait, what? I thought she was found guilty. Yeah, she was found guilty in this case. I'm saying, in general, it may happen, right? Let's put on our conspiracy caps. Sometimes the voices go unheard by the justice system. That's what I'm saying. Everyone, I hope you guys have a great weekend. I hope you guys have a fun... Like, Jason, you already told us the second half of the episode was recorded. It's not... I know, okay. I'm just trying to maintain the illusion. I've lied to you twice in 20 seconds. You're right. Everything after the Epstein stuff I recorded after the bizarre events that happened at Sabine's house again. We'll play that for you tomorrow. I'll be honest, another EVP I picked up. I think, I don't know, but it shut down my production process. I was trying to edit. I'll talk about it tomorrow's episode. I don't want to go into it now, but anyways, yes, this part of the episode was recorded on time, so I'll see you tomorrow. Basically, I'm not going to pretend it's the weekend anymore. deadrabbitradio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at facebook.com/deadrabbitradio. TikTok is at deadrabbitradio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm so glad you listened to it today. Have a great day, guys.